I remember that day like it's burned into my skin. Asterisk, it was raining, not soft rain. Heavy, cold, like the sky wanted to warn me. I had just finished work early and thought, why not surprise Liam? I even stopped to pick up his favorite takeout, Thai noodles with extra chili. I was smiling when I walked up the stairs to our apartment. I didn't know I'd be carrying a corpse back down the corpse of the person I used to be. Asterisk, the door was unlocked. That should have been the first sign. Liam never left it unlocked, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was in the shower. I stepped inside, shoes wet, heart warm. I remember thinking how nice it would be to just curl up with him and eat and talk. Then I heard it laughter. Asterisk, but not his alone. Hers too. Chloe. Asterisk, my best friend since we were 14. The girl who stayed with me after my mom died. The one who held me while I cried, who helped me move in with Liam. Her voice was always familiar, always safe. But in that moment, it sounded different, louder, intimate. Paired with his, I didn't want to believe it. I walked slowly down the hall. My breath started to stutter. Every step felt like I was walking into a burning building. Then I saw them through the half-open bedroom door. They were on our bed. Liam was shirtless. Chloe was under the blanket. Her arm was wrapped around him like it had always belonged there. They were giggling about something I couldn't hear. I didn't care to. Asterisk, time didn't stop. It shattered. Asterisk, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. It just froze. Asterisk, my fingers went cold. My legs felt weak. My chest felt like it had been ripped open and filled with ice. I stared for maybe 3 seconds, maybe 10. Then I turned around and walked back out. Asterisk, no words. No sound. Just ... silence. Asterisk, I walked past the takeout bag I had dropped near the door. I didn't bother to pick it up. I stepped outside into the pouring rain like it was the only thing holding me together. I walked until I couldn't feel my feet. My coat was soaked. My hair clung to my face. I could barely see, but I didn't stop. I ended up sitting on a bench near the bridge downtown. People walked past me. No one looked. I was just another wet girl in a storm. I stared at my phone. My lock screen showed a picture of me and Liam on our anniversary. We were laughing. I looked so in love. Asterisk, I pressed down on the power button. Held it, shut it off, then I turned it back on, opened our chat, and started deleting. First Liam, then Chloe. Asterisk, every photo, every video, every message. Asterisk, I remember my fingers shaking, and my vision was blurry, not from the rain anymore, from the tears. I didn't let fall when I saw them. The last message I deleted from Liam said, "Miss you already, baby. Hurry home." I almost laughed. 6 years, gone. Asterisk, I blocked them both. I removed Chloe from every group chat, logged out of Instagram, and I threw my phone in my purse and stared at the street for a long time. A car passed, then another, then none. I thought about walking into traffic. I didn't because I remembered my sister, Grace. Asterisk, I remembered the promise I made to her when she was 15 and tried to take her own life. We don't give up. Not you, not me, ever. So I didn't. But part of me still died that night. The part that trusted, the part that believed love was enough. It's a girl who waited up late for Liam. The girl who texted Chloe long voice notes about her day. The girl who made plans, dreamed of weddings, thought friendship was forever. She died, and the rain buried her. Asterisk, I walked all the way back to my apartment, but I didn't go inside. I just looked at the windows. I saw shadows. I couldn't tell if they were still there, laughing, touching, ruining everything. Asterisk, I turned around, called a cab, went to a motel on the other side of town. That's where I stayed for the next few days. No calls, no texts. No one knew where I was. I didn't want to be found. Asterisk, the bed was cold. The silence was louder than anything. But it was. Better than hearing them? Asterisk, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself over and over why. Asterisk, why him? Why her? Why me? No answer ever came, but one thought did clear, strong. This pain is going to change me. And it did. Asterisk that night. My pain was born. Asterisk, and one day it would become their punishment. When your whole world breaks. The hardest part isn't running away. Asterisk, it's knowing that no one will come looking. Asterisk, the morning after I saw Liam and Chloe, I packed a single suitcase. I didn't even cry. I just moved like a robot. One pair of jeans, 3 t-shirts, my favorite hoodie, a photo of my mom that I couldn't throw away, everything else left behind. Asterisk, I sent one email, just one. Asterisk to my boss. I quit. Personal reasons. Effective immediately. Asterisk, I turned off my phone again. I didn't check my email. Didn't say goodbye. I booked a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of the city through a listing that looked sketchy but cheap. It had no furniture, just a mattress on the floor, a stove that barely worked, and windows that looked out onto a brick wall. Perfect. Wasn't running from anyone. I was just trying to feel ... gone. Asterisk, I used a different email to set up the Wi-Fi. I canceled all my social media, changed my number. The world outside could go on spinning. I didn't want to be part of it. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. I lay on the mattress and stared at the ceiling. The silence was thick. I didn't even turn on music. Food didn't matter. Sleep didn't come. I just existed. In that empty space, like a ghost. Asterisk, at night, I'd pull the covers over my head and cry into the pillow. But even the crying started to feel like effort. After a while, I just stopped doing that too. I didn't want comfort. I wanted to vanish. Asterisk, then Grace started calling. Asterisk, my little sister, right, loud, soft-hearted Grace. She called once, then twice, then 27 times. The phone vibrated against the floor over and over again. Each time her name flashed, something inside me cracked a little. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't want her to hear what my voice had become. I could picture her. In our childhood kitchen, pacing around barefoot in one of my old hoodies, yelling, "Where the hell are you, Em? Call me back." And that made me want to both smile and break down. But I didn't do either. I just sat by the window, sipping cold water and watching raindrops slide down the glass. It was always raining, like the world couldn't stop crying. For me, so I didn't have to. Asterisk once, I almost picked up. Her name lit up again, Grace calling. I held the phone, just staring. But then the doubt came back. Asterisk, what would I say? Asterisk, hey Grace, guess what? The guy I loved and the girl I trusted most ripped me in half, and I didn't even scream. No, that would have made it real, and I wasn't ready for real. The days passed. I stopped counting them. I would walk outside only when I had to. Grocery store 2 blocks away. Bought instant noodles, crackers, water. The cashier asked me once, "Are you okay?" I nodded. She didn't ask again. Asterisk, I didn't look in mirrors. I knew what I'd see: sunken eyes, messy hair, someone who didn't look like Emily anymore. But maybe that was a good thing. I didn't want to be her anymore anyway. Asterisk, the Emily who laughed with Chloe until midnight, who planned vacations with Liam, who bought new dresses just to hear him say she looked beautiful. Asterisk, she was gone. And I wasn't ready to replace her yet. Asterisk, one night I opened the old shoebox I brought with me. Inside were letters from Grace, old birthday cards from my mom, and the only photo I still had of Liam and me. It was from a trip to the lake 2 summers ago. We were both soaked, laughing, holding ice cream cones. Asterisk, I stared at it. My hand shook. Then slowly, I tore it in half, then into quarters, and into tiny pieces that rained down like ash onto the floor. That night I slept for the first time. Not well, but enough. And when I woke up, I decided to try something small, something human. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, opened the window for fresh air. It wasn't healing, but it was ... effort. Asterisk, I didn't know if I wanted to be found. Knew I had to survive. Not for Liam, not for Chloe, not even for Grace. For me, even if that meant doing it in silence. Far from everyone, hidden in a crumbling apartment, maybe disappearing wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. I didn't plan to look back, but one night, after too many sleepless hours staring at the wall, I opened my old laptop. It still had everything: photos, messages, call logs. A life I had buried but not yet burned. I scrolled through our group. Chats. Chloe, Liam, me. We used to talk about everything: movie nights, birthdays, stupid inside jokes that made no sense unless you'd lived them now. Every message felt like a knife I had swallowed without realizing. I clicked on a photo. It was me and Chloe at my birthday dinner last year. She was smiling too wide. I remembered that night. Liam had been late. He said he got stuck in traffic. I didn't question it. Chloe had sat beside me and kept pouring wine, telling stories to distract me, but now I wondered, had she known even then? Was she protecting me or covering for him? I clicked on another thread. A text from Chloe just 3 months ago. Liam says he's working late again. Should go surprise him that. Wink. That stupid wink. I remembered I did go. He wasn't home. He said he'd gone to the gym after work. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Because I was blind. Because I wanted to be. It's easy to look back and feel stupid, but it's worse to realize other people probably saw what you couldn't. That's when Ava messaged me. Chloe's cousin. We weren't close, but she used to show up at birthdays and holiday dinners. Quiet, always observing. I hadn't heard from her in years. Her message said, "I know this is random, but I saw what happened. I'm sorry." I always thought something was off between them. Just that. No explanation. No gossip. Just quiet, clean truth. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "You knew?" She replied right away. I didn't have proof, but I saw the way she looked at him when you weren't watching, and how guilty she looked when you were. That hit harder than any scream. I sat with that message for hours. I didn't respond again. I didn't have words. But something shifted inside me. Not a flame, not a scream, just a spark. I started going through more messages, all the signs I had ignored. The nights Liam snapped at me over nothing. The days Chloe pulled away slowly, stopped answering calls, canceled plans last minute. Once, I had told her Liam seemed distant. She said, "You're just overthinking. Maybe give him space." Now I knew what she really meant. Give me space with him. Every memory turned sharp. The moments I thought were normal, even kind, were twisted now. Gaslighting. Manipulation, words I used to read about in articles but never thought would belong to me. But they did, and realizing that didn't break me this time. It woke me up. Because for the first time, I saw them clearly, not as the people I loved, but as the ones who let me bleed while they smiled to my face. The betrayal wasn't just the act. It was the silence. The way they watched me worry, cry, question myself, and said nothing. They let me sink while they held the lifeboat, and still I kept thinking it was me, that I was the problem, that I wasn't enough. But the truth was simple. They were cowards. Too selfish to be honest, too weak to walk away. I closed the laptop and stared at the empty room around me. No photos on the wall, no memories, just quiet. But inside, I wasn't empty anymore. I was starting to feel something I hadn't in weeks. Anger. Not wild rage, not revenge, not yet. But the kind of anger that's cold, quiet. The kind that sits inside your ribs like ice and waits. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror for the first time in weeks. My reflection looked like someone else, tired, thinner, quieter, but her eyes, they were finally open. I didn't plan on staying hidden forever. Asterisk, I just didn't know how to come back to life. Asterisk, but one morning, I woke up to the sun pushing through. The curtains, not rain, for once. Just soft golden light touching my face like a whisper. And I thought, maybe I could try today. Asterisk, so I got up, put on a clean shirt, and walked outside. Asterisk, there was a bookstore cafe a few blocks down Willow. An ink. I'd passed it before but never gone in. That day I did. The smell of coffee and old paper wrapped around me like a blanket. It was warm, safe. I asked if they were hiring. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Ruth, looked me up and down. I must have looked rough too thin, dark circles under my eyes, a quiet voice. But she just smiled and said, "You can start Monday. We're short-staffed." Asterisk, that was it. No questions. No past. Just a chance. The first few days, I mostly worked the register, stocked shelves, wiped tables. I liked how quiet it was, the sound of pages flipping, soft jazz playing in the background. People came and went, but no one looked too hard. It was the kind of place you could disappear and still be useful. Asterisk. And that was enough for me. Then I met Ethan. He worked in the tiny kitchen tucked behind the shelves, made pastries, brewed espresso, kept to himself. I only saw him in passing at first. He didn't say much, just nodded when we crossed paths, until one afternoon. I was wiping the counter. A couple had just left. They were laughing, holding hands, the kind of laughter that used to live in my apartment. I froze for a second, my hand still gripping the cloth. Ethan walked out with a tray of clean mugs and set them down beside me. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low and even. Asterisk. I nodded too quickly. Asterisk, he didn't believe me. I could tell. He studied my face, then said something that stuck. Asterisk, "You look like someone who's been hurt, ... and wants to make sure it never happens again." I blinked, not in shock. In recognition. Asterisk, he didn't say it with pity, just truth. And he didn't ask questions. He didn't offer fake comfort or try to fix me. Asterisk, he just stood beside me, quiet, like someone who understood that silence can be kinder than words. Asterisk after that. We talked a little more each day. Nothing deep, just simple things. Books, coffee flavors. He liked poetry, but didn't tell many people. I liked murder mysteries, which made him laugh. "That tracks," he said once, grinning. Asterisk, he never asked about my past. And I didn't ask about his. But his presence became something I didn't realize I needed steady. Soft, uncomplicated. One evening, we closed the shop together. I was sweeping. He was washing dishes. The window showed the street glowing in orange and pink from the sunset. Asterisk, he said, "You seem different now. Not better. Just stronger." I paused. "I'm not who I was," I said quietly. He nodded. "Good. That version of you looked tired." I smiled for the first time in weeks. It wasn't a big smile. It didn't fix anything. But it was real. Asterisk after work, I started walking home instead of rushing. I noticed things the way the leaves turned gold, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery across the street, the sound of music from a second-floor window. Asterisk, the world felt less heavy. Asterisk, and sometimes I even answered Grace's texts. Not fully, just little replies. Asterisk, "I'm okay." Asterisk, "Working now." Asterisk, "Maybe I'll call soon." She sent 1,000 heart emojis and one message that made me tear up. "I don't need you to be okay. I just need you to come back when you're ready." Maybe I was, not completely, not yet. But part of me was walking toward that version of myself I hadn't met before, the one who didn't need to be loved to feel worthy, the one who didn't need Liam's approval or Chloe's loyalty to feel whole. Asterisk, I was starting to see her. Asterisk, she looked quiet, dumped but strong, wounded but healing, scared but brave enough to show up anyway. Asterisk, I still had bad nights. Nights where I stared at the ceiling and heard their laughter echo in my head. Nights where I almost typed their names just to see what they were doing. Asterisk, but then I'd remember Ethan's words. Asterisk, "You're stronger now." Asterisk, and I'd close my eyes and let sleep take me instead. I was shelving books when Ava messaged me again. Asterisk, "You didn't hear?" Asterisk, just those 3 words. No hello, no emojis. Just a question sharp enough to cut through months of silence. Asterisk, I stared at the screen, my hands trembling just slightly. Tapped back asterisk hear what? Her reply came fast. Liam's company is being investigated. Financial misconduct. And Chloe, she got fired. Asterisk I read it twice. Once for the facts, a second time for the weight. Then I set my phone down. Asterisk I didn't feel joy. Not in the way I imagined revenge would taste. There was no rush of triumph. No fists in the air. Just quiet asterisk like watching a thunderstorm from behind a window, dry and warm. Asterisk later that night. Curiosity pulled me into the glow of my phone again. Asterisk, I looked them up. Asterisk their photos were still there, Liam and Chloe on vacation. At fancy dinners, sipping wine like nothing could touch them. But now, the smiles looked ... strained. Polished for the camera. But hollow around the eyes. Asterisk's eyes zoomed in on one where Chloe held a champagne glass. Her eyes darted sideways. Not candid, not carefree, just cautious. Like she knew something was falling apart behind the scenes. Asterisk. Clicked on Liam's company profile next. Asterisk articles. Headlines, whispers of an audit. Tip, a whistleblower. Liam Morgan and Associates under investigation for tax fraud and embezzlement. Jordan. Blake. The name came up more than once. Asterisk I remembered him from old dinners. Smooth talker. Too confident. Kind of guy who shook your hand but never looked you in the eye. Asterisk Liam had trusted him. Or maybe they were both crooked. Hard to tell now. Asterisk. But I remembered something even clearer how Liam once told me. I was too naive to understand how real business works. Maybe he was right, because I'd never understood how people could lie, steal, and still sleep at night, but now they weren't sleeping. That much was obvious. I closed the tabs. A strange calm spread through me. Not fiery like revenge, but steady like truth. Asterisk, this wasn't my doing. I hadn't plotted or posted or exposed anyone. Asterisk, I had just walked away. Asterisk, and somehow the collapse had come anyway. Asterisk, it reminded me of something Ethan said a few days ago when we sat on the back steps during break. Asterisk's karma doesn't ask for directions. It always finds its way. Hadn't told him about Liam or Chloe. Not directly. But maybe he saw it in my eyes. The history, the heaviness. He didn't need details to understand a story written in silence. Asterisk. Now I understood what he meant. Asterisk justice doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears timing. A few days later, Ava messaged again. Jordan disappeared. Left the country. There's a warrant. Didn't reply this time. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. Asterisk, I cared enough to know this wasn't my burden anymore. Asterisk, for so long I thought healing would only happen when I saw them suffer. When I could point to the wreckage and say, that's what you get for breaking me. Asterisk, but it wasn't like that. What healed me was the distance. The space between who I was then and who I was becoming. Asterisk, in that space, I found quiet. I found Ethan. I found breath again. I found that I didn't need to lift a single finger. Pain really does come with a receipt. And when the universe decides to cash it in, you don't even have to watch. Asterisk still. I let myself feel it just for a moment. Asterisk. I sat on my tiny couch in my tiny apartment and whispered, I survived you. Not as a curse, but as a truth. Asterisk. I pulled out my journal, something I hadn't touched in weeks. Asterisk, I wrote, greater than you don't have to bury people to move on. You just have to stop visiting the graves. The next day at work, I laughed. Out loud? Asterisk Ethan. Raised an eyebrow. Is the espresso machine telling jokes now? It's asterisk. I smiled. No, just good day. He didn't push, just handed me a cookie he'd baked with cinnamon and clove. Asterisk. It tasted like comfort, like beginnings. And I thought to myself, maybe they're finally getting what they gave. Asterisk, and maybe I'm finally getting free. It started with a journal. A gift from Ethan, left on the cafe counter one slow Tuesday afternoon. Leather-bound, plain, no lines. A note inside. Asterisk, maybe the silence needs a page. Asterisk, I stared at it for hours before opening it, and when I did, the words came slow. Blood from a wound too old to bleed easily. Asterisk, I don't even know who I am without the pain. That was the first sentence I wrote. Then, I wrote about the night I heard Liam's voice say another woman's name. About Chloe's laugh behind a locked door. About how the walls in our home echoed lies louder than they ever echoed love. Asterisk, I wrote until my fingers cramped. Asterisk, and when I had filled 10 pages in one sitting, I cried. But not from grief, from relief. Asterisk, for the first time, the pain was somewhere outside of me. A week later, I booked a therapy session. I only went once. Asterisk, her name was Claire. Late 30s, sharp eyes. A presence that felt both grounded and unshakable. Asterisk, she let me talk. Listened. Didn't blink when I spoke about betrayal like it was casual, like it hadn't nearly ended me. Then she said something I didn't expect. You're not angry enough, it startled me. What? Asterisk, you've intellectualized it all, she said. But where's the fire? Where's the rage they buried you with? Asterisk, I didn't have an answer. Maybe I'd buried it too deep. Maybe I thought. If I kept it contained, I could stay in control. But Claire was right. I had swallowed my rage like medicine. Like it was something to get rid of, instead of something I needed to understand. Asterisk, that night. I picked up the journal again. Asterisk this time. I didn't just write what happened. I wrote what I felt. Raw, ugly, unforgiving. I wrote lines like greater than I. Gave them everything, and they left me empty. Asterisk, greater than no apology can buy back a soul that was broken in silence. Asterisk, greater than this pain made a woman out of the girl they tried to destroy. And when I finished writing, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop. I created a blog, no name, no photos, no location, just truth. I posted my story, added only slightly for anonymity. I didn't want to hurt them publicly. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. This was about me. The next morning, my post had 74 views. Asterisk, by the end of the week, it had 31,000. Asterisk, comments poured in from women I didn't know. Women from different cities, countries, even continents. Asterisk, I thought I was the only one. Asterisk, you wrote my heartbreak like you lived in my bones. Asterisk, thank you. Thank you. Each comment was like a brick in a house I didn't know I was building. A home for the broken and the brave. Asterisk, I started writing every night. Stories, reflections, truths I had never dared to speak aloud. Asterisk, and every time I hit publish, I felt lighter, like I was finally handing back the weight that was never mine to carry. My pain had become my power. Asterisk, it wasn't just about Liam anymore, or Chloe, or the versions of myself I lost in their shadows. Asterisk, it was about every woman who had ever been lied to, silenced, manipulated, broken, told to smile through it. It was about reclaiming space. My blog got shared, reposted. SCREENSHOTT. Asterisk people started quoting my lines on Instagram. Asterisk, a small publisher even reached out, asked if I'd consider turning the posts into a book. Asterisk, I didn't say yes. Not yet. Asterisk, but for the first time. I felt like I had a choice, and that alone felt revolutionary. One night, I showed Ethan a piece I'd written, not the whole blog, just a single paragraph. He read it silently, then looked up. Whoever wrote this fought their way through hell. I smiled. She's still walking through the ashes. Asterisk, and somehow he said she's setting the ground on fire instead of letting it burn her. He didn't ask if it was mine, he didn't need. To asterisk, by the time I walked home that night, something inside me had shifted. I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel broken. Asterisk, I felt solid, like every shard I once cursed had become part of the armor I now wore. And the most surprising thing, I wasn't angry anymore, not the way Claire meant, because I had finally given my pain a voice, and in doing so, I gave it peace. It started with a call I didn't recognize. Asterisk private number. No voicemail. Then again the next day, this time. Let it ring while staring at the screen like it owed me an apology. Asterisk on the third day. I picked it up and didn't say anything. There was a pause. Then I heard his voice. Asterisk. Emily. Liam, that name, his name hit my chest like a stone I didn't realize I was still carrying. But I didn't answer. Please, he said. Just listen. I hung up. No anger, no tears. Asterisk, just... Asterisk, it was louder than anything I could have. Said asterisk the next day. The email came from Chloe B. Subject. We were stupid greater than I don't even know where to begin. I know we hurt you. I know we broke something we can never fix. But we miss you. Both of us. Asterisk, can we talk? She added a smiley face at the end. A smiley face. Asterisk. Like this was a group chat reunion and not the crime scene of my trust. Asterisk. I read the message 5 times. It's not because I was considering a reply, but because I couldn't believe the arrogance. Asterisk, they wanted my forgiveness like it was a prize they could win. Asterisk, like saying we were stupid was enough to undo the wreckage they left behind. Asterisk, they missed me. Of course they did. They missed the version of me who bent to make others comfortable, who loved without checking if love was being returned, who stayed silent when betrayed just to keep the peace. Asterisk, but that girl, she was gone. I didn't reply. Asterisk, I didn't need to. My silence said everything. I didn't need closure. They did. I didn't need forgiveness, asterisk, they wanted it to feel better about themselves. Asterisk, I didn't need them. Asterisk, they only now realized they'd lost something real. Asterisk, the next morning, Ethan slid into the cafe before opening hours. He had 2 coffees and a crumpled paper in his hand. Asterisk, I printed this, he said, handing it to me. From your blog, hope you don't mind. It was one of my most recent entries, the one about betrayal, feeling like a theft of your soul. Asterisk, he read it aloud. Greater than they didn't just take my heart. They stole the version of me that believed people mean what they say. Asterisk, he paused. Up. Asterisk, whoever did this to you. They're scared now. I blinked. What do you mean? Asterisk, they can feel it. The shift. Yeah, you've changed. And that scares people who depended on your silence. Asterisk, I didn't respond, but I felt it. What he was saying, Liam and Chloe hadn't reached out because they were sorry. They reached out because I was no longer who I used to be. Asterisk. I wasn't curled up in bed crying over their names anymore. Asterisk, I wasn't checking their social media in. The dark at 2 a.m., I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And worse for them, I was being seen. The blog had grown, quietly, steadily. Asterisk, people reposted my quotes. DMs flooded in from strangers who found solace in my words. Asterisk, a woman named Sasha wrote, asterisk, greater than I left after reading your post. You reminded me I deserve peace, high school girl messaged. Greater than I thought heartbreak was weakness. But now I see. Strength in scars. Even Claire, my therapist, sent a short email. Greater than you found your fire. Keep going. Their words didn't just lift me. They lit something inside me. Asterisk power didn't look like shouting anymore, or throwing things, or dramatic. Exits. Power looked like not replying. Power looked like choosing myself, quietly, and letting the noise die out on its own. Asterisk power looked like not needing anyone to know. I had healed because the glow spoke for itself. Asterisk later that night. I reread Chloe's email, not out of emotion, but out of curiosity. I imagined her face while writing it. The guilt. The hope that maybe I still carried enough softness to let her back in. Asterisk. But I didn't, and that didn't make me cold. It made me whole. Asterisk. Clicked archive. No reply. No explanation. Just a calm knowing. I don't go back to fires I had to crawl out of. The headline came before the warning. Asterisk, I was pouring oat milk into a coffee when Ava burst into the cafe, holding her phone like it was on fire. Asterisk, he's been arrested. Asterisk, I blinked. Who? She turned the screen toward me. Liam Hawthorne, tech consultant arrested in fraud investigation. Asterisk, there it was. His face, pixelated, but unmistakable. Asterisk gray hoodie, cuffed wrists. Eyes cast down. Asterisk my hand didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Asterisk, I just blinked again. Asterisk Ava slid into a seat near the counter. It was Jordan. He turned him in. Asterisk, Jordan Liam's former business partner. The one who always looked like he knew more than he let on. He'd been quiet after the fallout, disappearing into the background when the blog went viral. I hadn't thought about him in months. Asterisk, but apparently he hadn't forgotten. The article detailed it all. Shell companies, stolen software, forged contracts, and one anonymous blog post that had triggered an audit. Mine, asterisk. Or what used to be anonymous. I looked at Ava. You told someone, didn't you? She didn't deny it. I didn't name you, but a reporter connected the dots. One of your quotes matched a post you made years ago on Facebook. It wasn't hard to trace. I didn't get angry. I didn't even sigh. Asterisk, I just leaned against the counter. Staring out the window, asterisk across the street, leaves fell onto the sidewalk in lazy spirals. A woman walked her dog. Ow! A child dropped a glove. The world kept moving. Asterisk, and I stood still. Asterisk, I didn't mean to, Ava said. Softer now, but once it was out there, I just let it happen. She didn't ask if I forgave her, and I didn't offer it. Asterisk, because in that moment, there was nothing to forgive. Asterisk, this wasn't revenge. This was gravity. Everything that rises without truth eventually crashes. Asterisk and Liam? He had been building a throne out of lies. Now it was asterisk 2 days later. Detective Wells showed up at the cafe tall, late 40s, sharp eyes that never blinked long. He ordered a black coffee, then slid a card across the counter. Asterisk, we may contact you. Just a formality. I didn't report anything, I said. You didn't have to. He nodded toward the window, where reporters now lingered outside. Sometimes truth doesn't knock, it breaks in. Asterisk. He left after 5 minutes. I never saw him again. Asterisk, but I kept the card in my drawer. A quiet reminder that even justice wears plain clothes. Chloe's name trended next. Someone on Reddit had found screenshots of her. Old messages. Asterisk, cruel, snide, mocking women who had been cheated on. Jokes about emotional manipulation and controlling the narrative. They tore her apart. Not with rage, but with receipts. A hashtag emerged. Hashtag Chloe exposed. I watched from my phone. No emotion, no thrill, just detachment. Asterisk I used. To dream about this. Asterisk about people finally seeing what I had seen behind closed doors. Asterisk I used to imagine her begging for forgiveness the way I once did. Asterisk, but now that it was happening, I felt nothing, and that's how I knew I was free. I didn't reply to the journalists who emailed asterisk. Didn't accept the interview requests or comment on the stories. Asterisk, my silence wasn't fear, it was control. Asterisk. I didn't need to explain my pain to strangers anymore. Asterisk, I had already explained it to myself. And that was enough. Asterisk that night. Ava stayed after closing. She helped me wipe the counters, her silence heavy. Asterisk, when we sat down, she finally said, I thought you'd be happier. Not looked at her. I'm not angry anymore. Asterisk. Not even. A little. I shook my head. Rage burns. But healing, it cools. It clears. Asterisk, she leaned back and studied me. You don't look like someone who's won. Asterisk, I didn't win, I said quietly. I survived. There's a difference. In the days that followed, I wrote less, not because the words dried up, but because the need did. Asterisk, the blog still ran. Messages still came in. but I spent more time offline, more time at the cafe. Time just being no longer haunted, no longer hunted. Asterisk, one afternoon, a young woman walked in, maybe 22, nervous eyes. She stood at the counter and whispered, "Asterisk, are you the one who wrote that blog?" I didn't answer. She smiled. "Shh. Whoever you are, thank you. You saved me." Then she walked out, and just like that, silence in me shifted. It wasn't cold anymore. It was peaceful. Asterisk, that night, I sat by the window. Lights low, its tea untouched. I thought about everything. The betrayals, the breakdown, the rebuilding. Asterisk, and now, this strange stillness. Asterisk, justice didn't scream. It didn't storm in with a sword. It arrived quietly, like the rain, like breath, like me, finally whole again. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Asterisk, maybe it was the years or the weight. I no longer carried, but the porch seemed shorter, the steps less steep, the door lighter beneath my hand. Grace opened it before I could knock. "You came." She smiled, pulling me into a hug that smelled like lavender and old books. Asterisk, I needed to. I whispered into her shoulder. Asterisk, we didn't speak much at first. She led me inside, made tea the way she always had. Chamomile, too much honey. The living room still had the faded yellow couch with the dip in the middle. Family photos lined the mantel. One of me at 10, grinning with missing teeth. Asterisk, I couldn't look at it long. Asterisk, we sat in the quiet. Outside, wind played with the chimes. Inside, the silence settled like an old friend. Asterisk, you remember that time Grace began? You dressed up in your mom's heels and declared you'd marry Prince William? Asterisk, I smiled softly. I think I was 6. You were stubborn even then, she chuckled. The laughter didn't last. It never does when the air is this full of ghosts. Asterisk, she looked at me. Her eyes serious now. Asterisk, you didn't come here just for tea. Asterisk, no, I said. I came to say goodbye. I reached into my bag and pulled out the letter. Old paper, folded edges. My name signed at the bottom in a slanted younger hand. Asterisk, I hadn't read it in years. Didn't need to. Asterisk, it was the letter I once wrote to Leon back when I thought an apology would fix us. When I still believed my love was enough to save him, I had poured everything into that paper. My shame, my sorrow, my plea, I never sent it. And now, never would. Asterisk, I wrote this the night after he disappeared, I said. The night I realized he was never coming back, not the way I needed him to. Asterisk, Grace held the letter without opening it. Her fingers were gentle. Asterisk, why bring it here? Asterisk, because this is where I became her, I said, voice trembling. The girl who trusted too much, who made excuses, who broke herself just to be someone's version of enough. Asterisk, my eyes blurred, blinked, but the tears came anyway. Asterisk, I loved him more than I loved myself, I choked out. And that girl, she didn't know any better. Grace didn't interrupt. She just reached across the table and held my hand. Asterisk, then it's time, she said softly. Time to let her rest. We went out to the garden in the back. It had changed, overgrown. Little wild, but the rose bush still stood near the tree we used to climb. I remembered skinning my knee there. I remembered hiding there after my first heartbreak. Asterisk, now I stood there again, older, wiser, weary, but strong. Asterisk, I knelt by the rosebush and dug a small hole. The earth was soft, warm, familiar. I placed the letter inside, folded like a prayer. Then I whispered, asterisk, goodbye. And I buried her, not Liam, not the memory, her, the girl I used to be. I stayed kneeling for a long time. Asterisk Grace stood nearby, giving me space. When I finally stood, my hands dirty and my heart trembling, she looked at me and said, asterisk, you're not that girl anymore. I know, I said, but hearing her say it made it real. Asterisk, that girl had believed in fairy tales, had bent herself backwards for people who barely noticed, had smiled through storms just to be chosen. But I had chosen myself. We went inside. Grace made fresh tea. I let the warmth fill my chest. She pulled out old photos, me and her in school uniforms, Halloween costumes, prom dresses. We laughed until we cried, and then we cried for real, for time lost, for innocence broken, for the girls we both used to be. I hated watching you go through it, she said suddenly. I wanted to shake you, to scream, but you weren't. Ready? I wasn't, I admitted. I had to lose everything first, even myself. She nodded. But you came back. That night, I stayed in my childhood bedroom. It smelled of dust and something bittersweet. The posters on the wall were faded. The ceiling had a crack I used to stare at while dreaming of faraway places. I lay in bed, hands on my chest, and, for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not happiness, not joy, just peace. It was enough. In the morning. I left early. I hugged Grace tightly. Thanked her without saying the words. And when I walked away from that house. I didn't look back. Not because I was trying to forget, but because I finally remembered who I was without the pain. The girl I buried will always live in me somewhere. But she doesn't lead anymore. She rests. Quiet. Safe. And I carry her not as a wound, but as a reminder. It had been a year since I buried the girl I used to be. 12 months since. I packed up the pieces of my life and rewrote them into something that finally made sense. Now. I stood in a quiet bookstore in a small town that didn't know me by name. And that felt good, like safety. Like freedom. The bell above the door jingled as I walked in. Scent of paper and ink welcomed me like an old friend. I wandered the aisles without urgency. I passed the romance section. Next, skipped the thrillers. Turned into nonfiction. And there. It was My Pain Became Their Punishment by Emily Harper. The title stared back at me like a mirror. I reached out and touched the spine. Cool. For a moment, I felt a tightness in my chest. Not sorrow. Not fear. Just wait. The kind you carry when you've turned your heartbreak into pages. When you've built something out of ashes. I didn't pick it up. I already knew what it said. I had written it on sleepless nights and rainy afternoons. I had cried over those chapters. Paused between paragraphs to breathe through the ache. It wasn't a story about them, not Liam, not Chloe, not Jordan. It was a story about me, about surviving them. I stepped back and tucked my hands into the pockets of my coat. A teenage girl walked past me, eyes scanning the shelf. She paused at the book, tilted her head, picked it up. Her fingers traced the title like she'd found something sacred. Then she walked to the front counter. This book, she said to the clerk. Voice quiet but sure. This book saved me. I stood frozen, then I smiled. Not the kind of smile I used to fake, not the brittle, broken curve of survival. A real smile. The kind that rises when you realize your pain meant something because it helped someone else survive theirs. I didn't go up to her, didn't introduce myself, didn't need to. That girl didn't need to meet me. She already had, in those pages, in my words, in the truth I had bled onto paper. I left the bookstore quietly, the bell chiming one last time as the door swung shut behind me. Outside, the sun was setting. Orange stretched across the sky, soft. In forgiving, I walked down the street without looking back. There was no one left to chase, no one left to prove anything to Liam. Chloe, Jordan, ghosts now, flickers of memory, not people, not pain. Just past, I had thought revenge would feel like fire, sharp, final, but this was better, not because they suffered, but because I didn't anymore. I remembered the last time. I saw Liam, months ago. He sent a message. I read your blog. I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I wasn't writing for him, I was writing for the girl. I used to be in for the thousands like her. His guilt wasn't my healing. His regret wasn't my closure. Asterisk. Never replied. Asterisk that silence. That was my final word. I moved cities, changed my number. Got a rescue dog named Uni, who slept at my feet while I wrote. I grew plants on my windowsill and didn't panic when one died. I learned peace isn't permanent, but you can build it again and again. Asterisk. People messaged me every day now. Asterisk, your story gave me courage. Asterisk, your words made me feel seen. Asterisk, thank you for telling the truth. Sometimes I left him because of you. Asterisk, each one felt like a flame passed from hand to hand, lighting the way out of the dark. I didn't forgive them, but I forgave myself for staying, for hoping, asterisk, for needing love from people who didn't know how to give it. Asterisk, I stopped blaming myself for their betrayals, stopped defining myself by their silence, stopped shrinking, asterisk, one afternoon. Grace called me. Asterisk, your face is on a poster, she laughed. At the library? I laughed too. You coming back this way soon? Asterisk, maybe, I said, but only to visit. I belong to the world now, and I did. Not in the flashy, famous sense, but in the quiet way that matters, in voices whispering. Thank you to their screens. Asterisk. In women standing taller because someone told their story first. Asterisk. In girls like me who once thought love meant losing yourself. Asterisk. Now they knew better. Now I did too. The book was in its third printing. My agent wanted another. I wasn't sure yet. Some stories need time to settle before they're told. Some endings don't need sequels. Asterisk, sometimes. Survival is the conclusion. Asterisk, I walked by a river that evening. The wind played with my scarf. Uni trotted ahead, chasing leaves. I whispered into the dusk. You did it, Em. Not loud, just enough for the old me to hear. Asterisk. The one who cried in bathrooms, who waited for calls that never came, who begged in silence. Asterisk. She was gone now, but I carried her softly, like a scar, like a secret strength. Asterisk, my pain became their punishment. Not because they suffered, but because I didn't anymore. Asterisk, because I turned. Every crack into gold, every tear into ink, every goodbye into a beginning, and I walked forward, free.